What if the most powerful comeback was no comeback at all? What if true strength isn't loud but silent, the kind of silence that terrifies those who once tried to break you? And what if the greatest revenge is becoming so untouchable they can't even reach your shadow? Let's be clear. The greatest revenge is not revenge. It's not anger, not a sharp response, and definitely not a perfectly timed clapback. The real revenge? It's rising so high, so far above the noise, that the people who tried to bring you down can no longer touch your energy. They whisper your name, hoping to shake your spirit, but you're no longer there. You've evolved into silence, into strength, into something untouchable. Here's the hard truth no one tells you. Every minute you spend fantasizing about payback is another minute they still control your mind. And they don't deserve that. Not your focus, not your energy, and especially not your emotions. The ancient Stoics understood this deeply. They didn't chase vengeance. They focused on building lives of purpose so solid, so powerful, that those who wronged them became nothing more than passing shadows, irrelevant footnotes in their legacy. So let me ask you this. Are you ready to stop reacting and start reclaiming? Are you ready to stop chasing justice and start building a life so radiant, so disciplined, that your very existence becomes their quiet punishment? Because in this video, you're not going to learn how to get even. You're going to learn how to become unshakable, emotionally intelligent, fiercely focused, so much so that the people who once hurt you lose all power over you. Let's talk about revenge. At first, it feels like justice, like fuel. You get hurt, betrayed, disrespected, and suddenly, there's fire in your chest. That voice says, I'll show them, I'll make them regret it. And for a moment, that fire feels like strength. But here's the trap. Revenge is a beautiful lie. It tricks you into thinking you're taking control while quietly draining your peace. Imagine someone humiliates you in front of others. The instinct? Fire back. Make them hurt. Make it loud. And sure, for a second, it might feel good. But then what? You've now let them dictate your emotions. You've stepped into their arena. It's a place you never belonged. You've sacrificed your calm for a cheap win. That's not power. That's dependence. Because if your emotional state is determined by their actions, then who's really in charge? Marcus Aurelius said it best. The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. In other words, don't match their chaos. Outgrow it. Burn brighter in your own direction. So why does revenge feel so addictive? Simple. It's biology. Your brain's threat response, the amygdala, lights up. Your system floods with adrenaline. Your body prepares for battle. But here's the catch. That part of your brain doesn't care about wisdom. It doesn't care about your future. It doesn't care about your peace. So, will you let your biology run the show, or will you rise with discipline and show the world what real power looks like? When you react, you fall right into their trap. In that moment, emotional intelligence evaporates. You're no longer thinking like a Stoic. You're thinking like a wounded animal, impulsive, defensive, and out of control. This is where most people lose, not to their enemies, but to themselves. Because every petty act of revenge might sting the other person, but it wounds you even more. It clouds your clarity. It drains your energy away from your true mission. It ties your self-worth to someone else's opinion. And worst of all, it keeps you emotionally tethered to someone who no longer deserves to be part of your story. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine carrying a burning coal in your hand, waiting for the perfect moment to throw it at someone. You grip it tighter, waiting, But the longer you hold it, the more it scorches you. That's what traditional revenge does to you. The Stoics knew a better path. They believed true power is self-control. Real mental strength is walking away, not because you're weak, but because you're wise. As Epictetus once said, "He who angers you conquers you." So if you stay angry, they win. If you obsess over revenge, they win. If you let bitterness guide your future, they win. The game ends the moment you stop playing. Make no mistake, the people who hurt you want a reaction, because your reaction tells them they still matter, that you're still giving them your time, your thoughts, your energy, and your mind rent-free. But when you go silent, when you grow, move forward, and build something meaningful without them, they feel your absence like thunder, because silence is not weakness, it's a weapon. And indifference? That's emotional mastery in its purest form. You don't need to clap back. You don't need to win the argument, you need to level up. Not to prove anything, but because the best version of you doesn't waste time on revenge. They're too busy building an empire of peace, purpose, and self-worth. So, before you draft that clever comeback, before you hit send on that angry post or sarcastic tweet, ask yourself, am I acting from power or reacting from pain? Because here's the truth. Revenge keeps you trapped in the story they wrote for you. Discipline lets you write your own. One built on strength, not spite. Let's get one thing straight. Winning doesn't mean shouting the loudest. It doesn't mean proving your point or getting even. Winning in the Stoic sense means becoming so elevated, so focused on your path, that the people who hurt you can't even reach you anymore. That's not ego. That's evolution. Most people are still stuck fighting emotional battles, haunted by ghosts, trying to prove themselves to the very people who tore them down. But here's the hard truth. If you still feel the need to prove you've won, you haven't. People with true inner power don't announce their victory. They live it. They embody it. Their silence says more than their enemy's loudest insult. Think of the most powerful people you know. Not the richest, not the most famous, but the most grounded, composed, and untouchable. They don't argue. They don't chase. They don't perform. They rise, because here's the secret. Growth is the loudest revenge and the quietest one. Now imagine this. Someone in your life once mocked your vision, laughed at your small beginnings, told you that you couldn't make it. Now fast forward 1 year, your life is unrecognizable. Not because you fought back, but because you outgrew the battle. You don't have to react to prove anything, just keep rising. When you start building a life grounded in clarity, discipline, and purpose, you don't need to shout your success. Your life starts to speak for itself. You walk with a calm power. You don't need to explain, because the peace in your eyes and the steadiness in your steps say it all. And they, the ones who once hurt you, they see it. They see the glow. They feel the quiet confidence. They sense the presence they can no longer shake. But here's the twist. You no longer care if they see it or not. Because this rise, it wasn't for applause, it wasn't to impress them. It was because you simply refused to stay broken. That's Stoic revenge. It's not about getting even. It's about becoming so focused, so centered, so evolved, that their presence fades into irrelevance. There's a quote that sums it up best. The best revenge is to be nothing like those who wronged you, and everything like the person they'll never become. They expected anger. What they saw instead was you winning. So how do you rise? You don't need one dramatic comeback moment. You need a system. You need daily rituals that shape your emotional resilience and sharpen your inner leadership. Wake up early. Move your body. Read content that expands your thinking. Surround yourself with people who challenge your growth, not drain your energy. Invest in your mental well-being. Cut the noise, the gossip, the revenge stories, the tired emotional loops. Why? Because every minute spent thinking about them is a minute stolen from your future. You weren't built to play petty games. You were built to master your mission, and every time you level up in silence, no drama, no announcement, no look at me energy, you become unshakable. That's not revenge. That's true victory. The people who hurt you, they never expected you to rise. They expected you to beg, to explain, to break, to seek closure, but instead you disappeared, not out of fear, but into your purpose. You turned anger into ambition. You replaced revenge with routine. You walked off the battlefield and started building a kingdom. And that's what they can't handle. Because when you grow in silence, you force them to face what they fear most, your evolution. So don't waste time trying to prove them wrong. Become someone they never deserved access to in the first place. Let them watch you rise. Or let them wonder where you went. Either way, you win. When someone lies, betrays, disrespects, what they're really doing is making a bet. They're betting you'll crumble. They're betting your worth will collapse. They're betting they've taken something from you that you can't reclaim. But you show them, not with words, but through relentless, unshakable consistency, that they never had the power to define you, because excellence is the only language they truly understand. When you operate at your highest level, mentally sharp, emotionally grounded, physically strong, spiritually steady, you silence gossip. You expose envy. You destroy their false narrative. Not because you fought them, but because you outgrew them. That's Stoicism in motion, virtues per actum, excellence through action. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." That's not just ancient wisdom. That's the mindset of elite performance, because the moment you stop explaining and start embodying your worth, you stop being bait for drama. You become presence. You walk into rooms differently. You say less, but your presence says everything. You stop chasing attention and start commanding silent respect. Here's the truth. No one wants you to figure out. Most people only understand two outcomes: your collapse or your excellence. And when collapse is no longer an option, excellence becomes your only response. So build your body until it radiates discipline, not for show, but because structure breeds freedom. Build your mind until it becomes immune to chaos, like a fortress that no gossip or insult can shake. Build your mission until it wakes you up before the alarm even rings. And most importantly, build your inner peace so solid that no argument, no betrayal, no twisted version of the truth can touch it, not to prove anything to them, but to prove everything to yourself. Because the goal is never to convince your critics. The goal is to rise so far that they don't even belong in your orbit anymore. Let's be honest, do you think Marcus Aurelius had time to argue with small minds? To clap back at every insult? To chase closure from those who disrespected him? Absolutely not. He ruled an empire while journaling about stillness, virtue, and focus. That's not weakness. That's emotional dominance. That's what it means to choose progress over pettiness again and again. And here's what the Stoics knew long before Instagram or YouTube ever existed. The most powerful message is the life you live when no one's watching. Because when your habits speak louder than your hashtags, when your self-discipline becomes your identity, when your presence shifts the energy in a room before you even speak, they notice, even the ones who swore they never would. And that's what cuts deepest. Not your revenge, Not your comeback, but your quiet rise, your complete refusal to collapse. You made their betrayal irrelevant by becoming unforgettable. And here's the beauty of it. By chasing excellence, you don't just win, you transcend. You rise into a league where petty drama can't follow, where revenge becomes unnecessary, where clarity replaces closure, where your reputation is built on results, not reactions. If you want the best revenge, don't burn bridges, build towers. Let them stand at the bottom and stare while you keep rising. Because excellence is the only language they'll ever truly respect. Sometimes the loudest thing you'll ever say is nothing at all. No final word, no angry post, no dramatic exit. Just your calm, consistent footsteps walking away. In a world addicted to proving a point, silence becomes shocking. But in the world of emotional mastery, silence is sacred. Because walking away isn't weakness, it's strategy, it's self-worth. It's a message that says, you no longer have access to my energy. Most people don't expect you to walk away. They expect you to argue, to beg, to keep the drama going. Why? Because your attention is their oxygen. Your reaction feeds their ego. Your anger tells them they still have power. But when you disappear, when you stay silent, you shatter the entire game. The Stoics knew this well. Epictetus said, "Keep your attention focused entirely on what is truly your own concern, because every time you explain yourself to someone who's already made up their mind, every time you try to fix what you didn't break, every time you stay just to prove your worth, you trade your peace for their approval. And let's be honest, that's never worth it. When you choose silence and walk away, it's not surrender, it's power." Previously, we explored the strength of staying silent in the face of noise. Now let's go deeper. What does walking away truly mean? It means reclaiming control over your own story. It means realizing that not everyone deserves closure. Not every betrayal warrants confrontation. Not every attack needs your voice. Silence is not weakness. Silence is spiritual discipline, because it takes immense strength to choose stillness. When every nerve in your body is screaming to explode, it's easy to fire back. It's easy to send that angry message, to speak your truth just to be heard. But real power, that's pausing, breathing, choosing to say nothing at all. Why? Because you've realized one thing. Your energy is sacred, and sacred energy is not spent on things that drain you. Here's the paradox. The moment you stop trying to prove your worth is the moment you begin to embody it. You're no longer chasing justice. You become the justice. You become so centered, so unshakable, that nothing outside of you can disturb your clarity. That's what real mental toughness looks like. Not building walls, but knowing exactly where the door is and choosing when to walk through it without looking back. Let me give you a picture. Imagine someone who lied to you, disrespected you, used your kindness, and still expected you to come back. Most people wait for an apology, wait for accountability, wait for karma. But a Stoic knows the apology you're waiting for will never heal you as deeply as the decision to walk away. You don't need them to regret. You don't need them to understand. You don't need them to recognize your worth. You just need to see it yourself. And when you truly do, you'll realize something powerful. You were never angry. You were just hurt. But you stayed too long in places that didn't honor your pain, and now you've outgrown the need to explain it. Because sometimes the most powerful boundary isn't a speech, it's distance. So walk away, not out of pride but out of clarity. Let your absence speak, let your silence echo louder than your defense ever could. They'll hear it, they'll feel it. And while they replay the last thing they said, you'll be too busy living your next chapter, in peace, in power, in silence. That's the Stoic way. You don't owe your pain to anyone, not to the person who hurt you, not to the audience waiting for your reaction, not even to your past self who believed they deserved another chance. Let's get one thing straight. Carrying pain is not a badge of loyalty. Too many of us confuse suffering with strength. We think holding on to the betrayal, the humiliation, the wound somehow makes us braver. We fear that if we let go too soon, it means they got away with it. But here's the truth. They got away with it the moment you gave them the power to keep hurting you. In your own mind, there is a difference between healing and holding on. Healing is choosing you every single day. Holding on is choosing them again and again in the name of justice or closure. That's not strength. That's self-sacrifice. One of Stoicism's core teachings is self-mastery, the belief that your peace, your focus, and your emotional clarity belong to you. Not your enemies, not your ex, not your critics, not your past trauma. You've walked away, you've chosen silence. But what happens when your mind keeps dragging you back? When your nervous system is still stuck in yesterday's pain? Here's the hard truth. Every time you replay what they did, every time you relive that betrayal like a broken record on loop, you're not just remembering, you're re-injuring yourself. You're keeping their presence alive, not in reality, but in your nervous system, and worse, you're still giving. You're re-injuring yourself. You're keeping their presence alive, not in reality, but in your nervous system, and worse, you're still giving in. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But let's pause. That quote isn't just inspirational fluff, it's a lifestyle, a daily deliberate choice. So what does that Stoic strength look like in action? It looks like building boundaries. It looks like saying, yes, what you did hurt me, but I refuse to let it own my peace anymore. It's waking up without their shadow on your chest. It's choosing silence over revenge, distance over drama, freedom over familiar suffering. Because here's a sobering realization. They're not thinking about you. So why are you still building your world around their memory? Let that sting, because when it stings, it wakes you up. You start to see clearly the pain you're carrying. It became an offering. But the altar you left it on, it's long been abandoned. So how do you stop bleeding for someone who no longer even remembers cutting you? Not by pretending everything is fine, not by bottling it up, but by making a powerful, high-performance decision. You stop giving them space in your mind. You stop giving them your energy, your attention, your identity. You stop letting a temporary villain define the permanent direction of your soul. Yes, they hurt you. Yes, it was real. But so is your healing. So is your mission. So is your future if you choose to build it. The Stoics believed you are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become in spite of it. That's your quiet rebellion. You don't walk away to run from the pain. You walk away to choose something far greater than it. You stop talking about them. You stop chasing closure. You stop bleeding for someone who never even cared to ask, how deep is the wound? You don't walk away to punish them. You walk away to save yourself. That's power. And it doesn't need an audience. It doesn't need revenge or attention. It only needs your decision. I will no longer be the prison guard of my own suffering. From this moment on, you are no longer explaining, chasing, defending, or waiting. You are building, you are healing, you are rising. And them, They become irrelevant, not because they vanished, but because in your story they no longer matter. Eventually you'll have to choose. Do I want to win the argument or win my life? Let that sink in, because most people never make that distinction. They spend months, even years, chasing the moment they can say, "I told you so." But the people you're trying to prove it to, they don't even deserve the clarity of a full sentence. The Stoics knew this. Long before psychology, they understood, you don't rise by stepping on others, you rise by stepping beyond them. That's the high road. And don't get it twisted. It's not weak. Fad's not soft. It is one of the strongest, clearest signs of emotional intelligence you will ever practice. Let's break it down. The high road begins with self-worth, because when someone disrespects you, your first impulse might be to defend, explain, or confront. But often what we really want is validation. We want them to admit, "You were right. I was wrong. You didn't deserve that." But ask yourself, do you really need their validation to know your value? Because the path of self-respect means just one thing. You no longer outsource your self-worth. When you choose to take the high road, you're choosing freedom from dependency on anyone else. You begin to realize that their approval, their apology, even their recognition are all optional. But your inner peace? That's non-negotiable. Second, the high road demands delayed gratification. There's no dopamine rush, no applause, no viral clapback moment to satisfy your ego, and that's exactly why most people don't choose it. They trade long-term dignity for short-term drama. But Stoics like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus trained themselves for something higher, spiritual, discipline. They didn't live for emotional highs and fleeting victories. They lived for alignment, integrity, and inner stillness. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." That's the executive mindset. You preserve your energy for what actually moves your life forward, not for what temporarily feeds your ego. Third, the high road makes you untouchable. Think about it. When someone tries to provoke you, they want a reaction. They want chaos. But what happens when you give them nothing? No flinch, no fire, no response. You disarm them. Not with aggression, not with revenge, but with unshakable calm. And in that calm, you begin building real mental strength. Picture this. You're in a room where everyone's yelling, pointing fingers, losing control. And you're the only one standing still, composed, eyes forward. People notice. They might not say it out loud, but they respect it. Because composure is rare, and what's rare becomes powerful. Fourth, the high road is strategic, not passive. Let's be clear. Stoicism isn't about becoming numb. It's not about letting people walk all over you. It's about being so intentional, so focused, that you know exactly where your energy should go and where it shouldn't. Sometimes the highest impact move is walking away in silence. Other times, it's drawing a firm boundary. No anger, no fear, just calm, clear resolve. High performers, elite leaders, spiritual masters, they all have this in common. They don't engage with pettiness. Why? Because their vision is too big and their time too sacred to waste on people who don't even respect themselves. Fifth, their silence is the sound of your success. Here's the part no one tells you. The people who hurt you, they're watching. They act like they've moved on, but deep down, they see the life you're building. They hear about your growth. They feel the distance, how your peace no longer includes them, and that stings, because you've become someone they can no longer reach. That's the real mic drop. So that's the kind of revenge you don't have to plot, because your rise becomes the echo they can't silence. So now the question isn't, should I take the high road? It's, what would my life look like if I never left it? Because once you taste the power of choosing peace over pettiness, purpose over pride, mastery over mayhem, you don't go back. You rise. And you keep rising until even the memory of those who tried to drag you down can't keep up anymore. And that's how you win. When someone wrongs us, we often feel like karma isn't working fast enough. We check our emotional watch and think, why are they fine while I'm still hurting? That's not truth speaking. That's your ego, the part of you that wants justice now. But here's the Stoic truth. Justice delayed is not justice denied. The universe moves slowly, but it moves with precision. And the moment you stop playing judge, jury, and executioner, you begin reclaiming your peace. So once you stop chasing revenge and start reclaiming your peace, what next? It begins with a shift in mindset, from reaction to wisdom, from justice seeking to self-liberation. 1. Let the universe handle what you cannot. The Stoics had a name for this divine order. Logos, the rational structure that governs the cosmos. They believed that injustice, no matter how loud or cruel, will eventually collapse under the weight of its own imbalance. So, you don't have to be the one who gets even. You don't have to expose them, shame them, or make them finally see what they did. You simply need to step aside, so karma can do its work without your interference. As Epictetus said, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. When you walk in calm, grace, and silent resilience, you are no longer focused on retribution. You are building your future brick by brick, while their world unravels behind you. 2. Chasing karma is a spiritual trap. Here's what most people don't realize. The more you wait for karma to strike, the more mentally tethered you become to the one who hurt you. It's like sitting in an unlocked prison cell, refusing to leave until your enemy is locked in, the one next to you. That's not justice. That's emotional imprisonment. True Stoic strength is this: choosing peace even when it hurts, trusting the process even when you're tempted to interfere. Here it's not about pretending the pain didn't happen. It's about choosing your freedom over your need to be proven right. 3. They are already facing their own consequences. You may not witness it. There may be no dramatic downfall or public collapse. But the people who lie, manipulate, and betray, they live with the same destructive mindset that caused the damage. They sabotage every healthy connection. They self-destruct in slow motion. They wake up in emotional chaos and call it normal. That's karma. It doesn't always come in loud crashes. It comes in quiet cycles of emptiness. You don't need to destroy them. They're already doing it to themselves, one bad decision at a time. 4. Your energy is too valuable to waste on revenge. Let's talk about return on investment, not financial but emotional, mental, and spiritual. What does revenge really get you? Maybe a few minutes of satisfaction, but at what cost? Bitterness drains your clarity. Anger steals your peace. Resentment pollutes your emotional state and keeps you vibrating at the level of the person who wronged you. That's not power. That's self-harm disguised as justice. The Stoic answer: invest your energy in building the unshakable. Turn the pain into wisdom, not into a weapon. Use it to strengthen your purpose, sharpen your boundaries, and elevate your inner world. 5. When you let go, they lose everything. Here's the paradox. The moment you genuinely stop caring whether karma hits them is the moment it does. Why? Because they lose the one thing they still had: your attention. when their name no longer triggers you, when your response is silence instead of rage, when your life moves forward while theirs remains stagnant. That silence is deafening, that peace is powerful, and that calm indifference, that's the sting they never expected. 6. You're not the avenger, you are the example. In a world addicted to outrage, where everyone wants to win the argument or deliver the last blow, you stand out by staying grounded. True Stoics don't clap back. They build, they don't shout their revenge. They embody quiet resilience. You don't win by proving them wrong. You win by becoming so right with yourself, so deeply aligned with your values, that there's nothing left to argue with. That's not softness. That's Stoic power. Your growth becomes the lesson. Your peace becomes the proof. And that is the kind of justice that doesn't need a courtroom, a crowd, or a confession. So here's a final thought. Stop waiting for the universe to punish them. Start showing the universe that you're ready for your next chapter, your next level. Because the best karma, it's not watching them fall, it's rising so high they can't even find the ladder anymore. That's not just Stoicism. That's self-mastery. That's real freedom. That's the actual win. But let's talk about a word that's often misunderstood. Forgiveness. Even hearing it can stir up something in us, anger, resistance, maybe even shame, because somewhere along the way, forgiveness got twisted into weakness. People started thinking it means letting others off the hook, that it's passive, that it's surrender. But make no mistake, Stoic forgiveness is not weakness. It's one of the most resilient forms of emotional intelligence. It's not about them, it's about you. It's not a soft move, it's a power move. 1. Forgiveness is a solo journey to inner freedom. You don't need their apology. You don't need the perfect conversation or some poetic closure moment. You don't even need them to understand. Forgiveness, real Stoic forgiveness, is you quietly breaking a contract you never agreed to in the first place. The longer you hold on to the anger, the longer you stay chained to their memory. It's like tending to an open wound every day, not because it won't heal, but because deep down you're hoping they'll see your pain. Spoiler, they won't, but your peace will. Like Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. That means you have the power to stop carrying things that no longer serve your mental clarity. 2. You don't have to forget to forgive. One of the most dangerous myths we've been told. That forgiveness, forgetting. Wrong. Stoicism doesn't ask you to erase the memory. It asks you to evolve from it, to stop dragging your past like a rusted chain through your present. You don't forgive so they can come back. You forgive so you can move forward. Keep the lesson, let go of the poison, keep your dignity, let go of the obsession, keep the boundary, leave behind the courtroom in your mind. 3. Unforgiveness is a slow poison. It feels powerful at first. You replay the moment, prepare the comebacks, imagine the karma. But over time, all that energy, it's just burning fuel that could have gone into your future. Unforgiveness heightens anxiety. It steals your sleep. It fogs your mind. And most of all, it tricks you into thinking you're protecting yourself, when really you're just draining yourself. 4. Forgiveness is self-mastery in action. The strongest people you know, they're not the loudest in the room. They're not fighting every insult, proving every point. They're the ones who protect their energy like treasure, because they know peace is expensive, and not everything deserves a reaction. Forgiveness clears your mind. It gives you back bandwidth for growth instead of grudge, for creativity instead of chaos. It's not softness, it's strategy. 5. You can forgive without ever letting them back in. This is crucial. Forgiveness does not mean reconnection. It doesn't mean you're open to repeating the same pain. It simply means, I no longer carry this story with me every day. It means closing the door to it without keeping your hand on the handle. Now we move into one of the most powerful truths Stoicism offers. Forgiveness is not retreat. It's transcendence. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means fully realizing that you're no longer the person who got hurt, and they the ones who caused that pain no longer deserve access to who you've become. 6. A Stoic doesn't just forgive, they transcend. Stoics weren't about slogans, they lived their philosophy. They didn't chant about peace, they became peace. They didn't wait for the world to be fair. They showed up anyway, with integrity and strength. To the Stoic, forgiveness isn't surrender, it's elevation. It's rising so high that the noise of small minds can't touch your inner world anymore. Forgiveness is knowing the greatest. Power lies not in reacting, not in clapping back, not in seeking revenge, but in simply continuing to rise. A final reflection. Forgiveness isn't for them. It's for you, for the version of you that's tired of just surviving and finally ready to start truly living. It's for the you who no longer wants to carry the weight of pain into your future. The you who values mental clarity, emotional strength and spiritual elevation. So no, you don't forgive because they deserve it. You forgive because you do. Because you've suffered enough. And the moment you make that decision, quietly, internally, is the moment they lose their power forever. That's not surrender. That's sovereignty. So here you are, not a victim, not even just a survivor, but someone who chose peace over punishment, self-mastery over emotional chaos. You didn't scream, you didn't fight, you didn't beg to be understood. You simply became someone they can no longer reach. That's the ultimate revenge, because while they stayed trapped in the same tired loops, clinging to the same petty games, you built something they could never touch. A life grounded in strength. A soul untouchable by trivial minds, a presence so steady and centered, your silence became your thunder. Let them wonder. Let them gossip. Let them wait for a reaction that's never coming, because when you've discovered true self-worth, when your energy is protected by spiritual discipline and emotional intelligence, you owe no one your pain, only your progress. Now, it's your turn. What will you do today to prove, to the world and to yourself, that you've outgrown revenge? Leave a comment below. Your next step might just spark someone else's transformation. And if this message struck something in your soul, even for a moment, drop a like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Because here at Life Through Stoicism, we don't just watch videos. We're building a movement of minds where resilience is normal, silence is strategy, and power is earned quietly.